So assets stage a significant recovery after, quote, Trump signaled twice on Monday that trading partners might secure exemptions or reductions in tariffs, offering a reprieve that helped soothe market jitters. So let's hope this was all a big, stupid bluster, and it's all about just negotiating some deal in the end, albeit with some jitters for a couple months. That'd be fair. So other analysts have pointed to a global trade war concerns as the biggest hurdle for investor appetite. I think they're absolutely right on that. Global tariff fears will continue to pressure markets until April 2nd, by the way. April 2nd is when that is supposed to go into effect. That's what Trump is calling, what is it? It's not Freedom Day. I don't know, some goofy phrase there. Not Independence Day. I don't remember. Something. But yeah, April 2nd is a big day for us. So we got to keep an eye on that. So Bitcoin's down 14% since Trump took office. Um, Bitcoin is more likely to soar to a new, according to Arthur Hayes, $110,000 all-time high before retracing to 67.5 or 76.5, excuse me. And he's not saying that it's going to hit 110 and then go right back down to 76. He's saying that if he were to choose if it's going to hit 76.5 again first or hit 110 and go on, he's choosing 110. So Bitcoin's showing signs of recovery driven by growing institutional interest and significant investments from large players. The Federal Reserve's recent decision to ease its monetary tightening could further boost liquidity, favoring a price increase in the near term. So while market volatility remains a risk that could lead to a pullback, the overall momentum and support levels suggest that Bitcoin's more likely to hit higher targets first. And if you remember the last time we talked about, this is a chart I'm keeping my eye on. In fact, I'm going to put this in the chat for you so you can check this out and bookmark this, because this is kind of like, this is really what tells us what we need to know. Um, this shows us with about a 2.5 month lag ish. The pink line is overall global M2 money supply. And so if we see a big drop here, we see this big drop in the pink line, that means that about 2 months later, we're going to start seeing a drop in crypto prices. And sure enough, boom, right when it hits its low, we start seeing the drop. But right when this hits its low and Bitcoin and crypto start dropping as a whole, here's Bitcoin's price, we see that it's been a massive increase in the global M2 money supply since January. And so we're still 2 months, 2 or 3 months out from this for it to work its way through the economy. And so you can see from the bottom here in January 5th, we're now at March 9th or so, and then we see that bump. So 60 days later, boom, we start seeing this money filtering back into these prices. So this could be a big boom for us over the next couple months. I just want to keep that open. I've got two more things, and I'm handing it back over to Brett. Bitcoin flips macro bullish amid the first hash ribbon buy signal in 8 months. The data says, quote, buy for the first time since July of 2024, confirming the end to the latest minor capitulation phase. So this is something that's been pretty damn accurate. The hash ribbon sparks 100K Q2 Bitcoin price target. Bitcoin miners look set to make a comeback as the hash ribbon metric marks the end of their latest capitulation phase. The hash ribbon tracks potential long-term buying opportunities using hash rate. When miner profitability is at risk and the network participants retire, aka it's no longer profitable for some miners to mine, they turn their machines off, that means we're near a low. This forms the capitulation, which in turn leads to long-term price reversals. So that means that this whole time it's becoming less and less profitable for miners to mine. And in addition, not only they're turning off their miners, they're also selling Bitcoin they have, adding to selling pressure. But after that, they're finally done selling, and then we get to a big reversal. So according to data from Cointelegraph Markets Pro and TradingView, the hash ribbon put in its latest buy signal on March 24th. It's visible in both the daily and weekly time frames. So the previous hash buy signal came in July of 2024. That was damn near the bottom of that summer lull. At the time, Bitcoin had yet to bottom out, but it took several months before a wave of upsides began. Similar scenario happened after a buy signal printed in August of 2023 as well. One of the most accurate midterm indicators is bullish now, expecting Bitcoin to get back above 100K in Q2 of 2025. Bitcoin now ends the multi-month RSI downtrend. So the multi-month RSI downtrend is over. You can see we've been down, 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 and then we're finally starting to bounce after that huge wick down. So that's really good for us as well. Last thing I'll leave you with, crypto fear and greed. We're back at 40. We were at 50 a couple days ago. And then really over the last month, you can see that we've gone up from 10 back up to 50 and then back now down to 40. So we're still in fear, just not as much fear as before. And then the crypto fear and greed, which again has only been around since June, the end of June 2023, hit its lowest level ever back on that wick down in March, because most crypto tokens got smashed. So yeah, 3 on March 10th, we hit, I think like 17 out of 100, which is the lowest it's ever been. Or yeah, extreme fear, 15. Lowest was on March 10th. And we've been recovering ever since then. So worth mentioning. And yeah, other than that, yeah, inflation's looking much, much better. So I think this is going to start filtering in to the economic data as well. It's all just down to Trump and what he does with tariffs. So for right now, I'm going to pass this back over to Brett and let him take over.
Okay, awesome. Hopefully, you guys can hear me, and I'm gonna share my screen and try not to duplicate too much there. That was great. And here's that Bitcoin hash ribbon indicator. We looked at it yesterday in M3, showing that this green circle here, as Mike said, right on March 24th. And typically, the prices don't go back down below that. That used to be the case. It has been violated once or twice, but it's kind of a good moniker that shouldn't go back down below. And so I think, I think we are headed higher. That CME gap had filled. Finally, originally people said it had filled and it hadn't really filled, but then we went down and really did fill that. So not to go into the weeds with what the CME gap is, but we have talked about that on a number of different occasions. So this little gap right there finally did fill kind of on that second dump down in this range. So that's given us a green light to push up. And so I'm going to want to, let me just kind of save that here on the Bitcoin. Let me put it back to Bitcoin so I don't artificially change that chart. So let me go over a couple things here, and let's see. One of the studies that we've been following, the USDT dominance, which runs in the opposition or inversely to Bitcoin, has been following this study that I did a couple months ago pretty closely and had this bounce off this lower trend line, which has been in place since back around 2018. So every time it comes down on the USDT, which is tether dominance, and touches that trend line and bounces, then we see a correction in the markets. So if I were to turn on that the total market cap, we can see that it runs inversely to this, which is pretty interesting. Why didn't that turn on? Let me try that again. Total market cap, that should have loaded up on that. This thing's acting a little strange, so I might have to just reload it. So let's do that real quick so you guys can see that. And there, now we can see it again. So basically, once these they pull towards each other, they kind of pull toward the median. And while there's a lot to look at there, when we had the total market cap recently and Bitcoin hitting new highs back in January and December there, we saw that tether dominance had come down to that trend line once again and then bounce off of it. So again, seeing that total market cap and Bitcoin correction as they converge. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that so there's not too much on the chart there, and we have covered it before. So what we see here, I'll just take these blue lines off. What they're basically a copy of back over here, and won't move exactly, but we can see what happened last time. So I do kind of label this chart here as crypto correction zone, crash, and bear market, so that if we start to see that, then we'll be ready for it. This seems to be coming back down toward that lower trend line, which would indicate we're heading toward new highs. And time-wise, around May into sort of June 25, I originally had proposed we'd hit new highs around October, November. Seems like the cycle is delayed a bit, so we just gonna have to monitor this. But when we come back down and start bouncing along that trend line, the next bounce off of it is going to be, we want to be watching for potentially going into correction crash zone. So I'll be watching that, keeping you guys updated so you don't have to monitor that and try to interpret it. So a couple things here. Solana breaking up into a new parallel trend channel, looking good, but we do have some mixed signals. I want to talk about that overall, where the daily signals are a little bit bearish, seeing some sell pressure on these, whereas the weeklies are looking very bullish. Let me just close some of these charts I've already covered. So with that, so let's go through and sort of see. I want to show that to you on the daily weekly time frame. So the TLDR is it time to buy right now? I would be careful buying right now in case we get another pullback, but the weekly candles, if they can hold here, are signifying soon a nice mega rally going into the summer and into Q3. So on the shorter time frame, we still see sell pressure on here on Bitcoin and the total market cap. Let me jump over where I can show that a little easier on my master list. And that's the only thing that concerns me. A lot of sell pressure still on Bitcoin, on total market cap, kind of rejecting at this downtrending trend line and that 50-day EMA. So we have what we want to see as a pullback into some of these green boxes. This is where this concentration of buyers and putting in higher low, and then start taking out some of these sell orders. But we have that all important $3 trillion level, which was the total market cap top and the market top for Bitcoin back in November 2021. It hit 3 trillion exactly, and then it kind of pulled back, signifying probably programmatic selling in that range. So, we've been congrats you guys for being super patient. We don't want to preempt and get in this thing too early. I do think we put in a low down here and we have some support, but we're kind of sandwiched between these two levels. On the weekly time frame, if I open that up, our buying signals are just starting to turn green on many of these on the individual coin, but total market cap, not so much. And getting some bullish divergence here. So again, not to go into the weeds with this, but these have been very helpful in calling market bottoms in the past. So I'm going to go back to that a little bit. Nice to see some bullish divergences here. We just want to see some confluence on the rest of these. And just to show total DeFi, also getting a bullish divergence on the weekly. But the week is not over yet. If we see a big sell-off, these will likely disappear. So just to come back and go down through some of these, again, a little bit of short-term overbought on the daily charts on our signals. But if I switch to that weekly, and I'm going to go through a few of these. We're watching like Solana. That was good to see those projections of Solana back up to around the 165. I would say probably up to 170. We'll see some sell pressure. We see some sell orders there, but also nice. I like that we're seeing us put in higher lows. And I'll be a buyer of Solana all day long between 110 and 125. It's just held that zone so well throughout the past year, really going back to March of 2024. And many of you know I've been buying those green boxes and selling on these, and have doubled my Solana in my IRA by swing trading that. Long term, this is a good buy. I think some people are talking about a Bitcoin lockout trade where it goes up very rapidly. And there was an ad in one of the articles Mike showed. I was watching that interview earlier today. I don't know if I had pulled up that same article. Maybe I can find it. Samson Mao is projecting, $1 million Bitcoin by the end of the year. I'm always a little bit leery of when these influencers come out like Kathy Wood and start raising their estimates to
Yeah.
much higher. We have to be aware of that hype cycle, which does usually come out around the top. So it hasn't gotten too frothy yet. I can't find that article, but so the estimates are anywhere from 138K to $1 million Bitcoin this year. So if we cut those in half, anything's possible. I think more importantly, and most importantly, we want to kind of wait for the opportune times to start adding to our positions. What I'll be watching for specifically, and why we haven't given any buy recommendations, is we're still in these downtrending parallel channels. I want to see this breakout above them. And while we're seeing that in Sol on the 4-hour, the daily isn't quite there yet. I'm going to go through this list here, and then we'll get down to one recommendation that I put out yesterday as a buy, which is finally looking good again. But on all these, we're doing pretty well. On Filecoin, it was suggesting buying that around that $3 range, and it had a bit of a throw under here below that $3 price, bounced out of this buy block. And I still like Filecoin, not to go heavy and bet the farm, but long-term support on this has been holding and putting in higher lows. So since we see it has a potential 40x this cycle to get to sort of old highs, longer term, I've got a potential 250x on this. That's probably a future cycle if it takes off, if it becomes a hot narrative. But certainly one to keep on our radar, and I've shared that with you guys before, all these take profit zones on Filecoin. So it's one of those asymmetric trades that the risk reward ratio is very favorable to us. So you may want to start and continue to dollar cost average down here in these ranges. What I do like about it right here is our trend strength indicator starting to go green. We have our RSI Pro showing bullish divergence. And in case you don't really know what that means, that's fine. But looking back into the last times we had these major kind of moves higher on Filecoin, and I'm, Filecoin, it's on all of the coins. So just watch the patterns. when these start to align, and when we get that TSI and RSI aligned, we do see these nice pumps. So looking at another version of that, Solana, just to backtrack a bit, and there's some great looking charts that are setting up on the weekly. Let me open up full screen so you guys can see this. And so looking back in history, when we have that TSI and the weekly kind of break up above 20, well, we have had some fake outs in the past. This is signifying some excellent runs going up and pushing higher on that weekly time frame. And then so we're just kind of waiting for this to go green on Solana, also on the bullish divergence here. I thought Solana was one of the charts that was looking the best. Aptos is one, and Aptos is one we've talked about in the past. But bouncing out of a buy zone right here in the green block, and the green box of buy orders, our order block detector, also seeing the TSI turning green. This thing's building momentum. Hey, this is Brett from Moonstream. If you'd like to learn more about our pro trading signals or our live classes every Wednesday or our Retire Rich program, go over to moonstream.io/start.